everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here for another exciting edition of Stories Behind Products. I'm thrilled to share the story of Hexlox, a small yet mighty bicycle security system protecting all bike parts against theft. I'm Oya Demirbilek, a professor of industrial design at UNSW, and I'm delighted to welcome you all from the beautiful Bijikal country where I live. I pay my respects to the Bijikal people, the traditional custodians of this unceded land, and acknowledge their elders both past and present. So this evening, our presenter is Ian Berrell, an alum of the Industrial Design Honours at UNSW. It is great to have you here, Ian.
Thanks, Oya. Good to be here.
So Ian has worked in product design consultancies in Sydney and was the portfolio manager for blood banking at ITL Biomedical. He has also developed and manufactured other brands of medical products on a consultancy basis. And after moving to Berlin in 2010, Ian launched in Europe his first product, the C3N, a combination lock against bicycle wheel and saddle theft. And in 2013, he developed the next generation product, which he patented and presented at Eurobike in 2014. Hexlox was successfully launched on Kickstarter, raising €120,000. And today, Hexlox has its office in Berlin, selling products to 300 plus stores across 26 countries. You can ask your questions via the chat function. And now it's time for Ian to take the stage. So over to you, Ian. And I'll stop sharing. There we go.
Thank you, Oya. This is a great series, and I'm very glad to be part of it. So yeah, this is it's great to be able to speak back to the Industrial Design School. This presentation is sort of honed towards someone who might be doing the Industrial Design course and what it might take to take a product from an initial idea concept through to manufacture and market it, and then stabilizing yourself in the market. So I'll get into the fun. So back in 2011, I found a need for wheels and saddles to be protected against theft. At the moment, at that time, there's a lot of larger companies who secure bike frames with D-locks and chain locks. It's quite a saturated market. However, there was only one solution that stopped wheel and saddle theft. It was a great product. It's called Pitlock. They forged away in the market. It's interesting that sometimes a competitor is a good thing, because a lot of the questions, the core questions that come up, some of the core questions that come up that you need to convince the consumer of have already been dealt with by them, and some of those questions the consumer has understood. So as an industrial designer, I know myself, you always think you need to have something that's never been done before, something that's completely unique, but it's sometimes easier to go off the back of something that's already been done. And as I was quite new in the bike industry, I thought this might be a product that I should approach. So I'll just go back to the beginning. As I mentioned, I was working at ITL. We were developing blood banking products. That was a great place for me to learn about the whole process, where we had a factory in Malaysia, we had a marketing team in the US, we had the design studios in Australia. So to develop a product, it was very formalized. There was the 7 key people in all the departments that needed to check off each of in the design process. They had to check off each stage that they were happy with the design. That meant that from day one, the marketing and production were always aware of the product that is coming through, and at an earliest stage as possible, they were able to contribute, show their concerns, and be part of the process. Then we've got these guys up here, the old team that I would like to give a big ups to. There they are, JT, Lance, Rena, Oya. It was just a great course. Everything that you need to know in the whole process was they made you aware of it essentially as best you can in a 4-year degree. So all of the steps that it does take to go from the original concept through to the marketing of the product, I think it was just amazing, the course at UNSW and how they provide that foundation so that things like this would be possible. So the first idea that I had was to secure the saddle and the wheels through a combination lock. The idea being that if you go into a bike shop and you want to have a frame lock, there's a section with D-locks and chain locks that have a combination. It's just a personal preference. So some people go in one direction, some go in another. The competition that I had, they were using a key very similar to a mag wheel or a car wheel. It's like a strange, odd shaped nut with an appropriate key or wrench. So this product was it was theoretically great. It was well received. I was working very closely to many shops. My time at ITL, we were mainly business to business. So I figured that they know their customers, and if you can satisfy their concerns, in turn, they will satisfy the customers. So yeah, well, it was developed. I flew to China for 3 months and made it somehow. It was very difficult. There's a lot of parts. The combination lock, it turns. So there's 3 cylinders. I decided to put letters on them because of password fatigue. People could then put their initials also. Yeah. After 3 years of selling this product, it was clear that there were many limitations. Namely the size. I think it was somewhat unreasonable because the competition was as big or bigger, but the fact that it was so large and it protruded from the bike was just a negative. This is the same time where minimalism was really kicking in the bike industry. So cables were being hidden, brakes were being minimized. There was just this movement towards a clean design. This product also had limitations where there were certain parts of a bike that were very difficult to secure. There was also the limitations where you would need to remove a bolt from the bike, replace it with a bolt that was could accommodate this system. In the end, it was market research, I suppose, coming from the medical industry and knowing how that works, to moving into the bike industry. I suppose I would have been super lucky if I had have nailed it first off, but that's fine. I was happy for those 3 and 4 years of experience in running around with this product and selling it to shops and listening to feedback and getting to know more and more people in the industry. I started to understand the industry much more and start to hone in on what might be a better solution. At the same time, there was interest in this product by some of the larger lock manufacturers, and I had offers. Originally, they said that this is a niche, and then at this time, 3 and 4 years later, after first producing this, it became a segment, and all the larger players started to have a product that was in here. So it seemed clear that this segment was legitimate, and that if the product was on point, the sales would come. So here's a Hexlox. This is the most dramatic photo I could find to indicate the size. The idea is, as you can see can you see my cursor? So the idea is that on the right-hand side, you can see two bolts, one on the left with Hexlox in it, one with it without. The idea is you've got a classical Allen key, the six-sided Allen key. The premise was that I would just need to make a product that would be the size of an Allen key. So all of the Allen key sizes, there is a Hexlox of that same size. So 4mm through to 10mm. As it turns out, all of the parts on a bike are secured with an Allen key. There are exceptions that we'll get to, but essentially this allowed you to secure your saddle against theft, for example, by using two Hexlox on the key, and the total weight was less than 2 grams. And this is the first thing that every single cyclist asks about a product. The weight is one of the most important things. So that was, I think, the key. The fact that the customer would not have to worry about sizes. The shop also would not need to remove bolts. If you do take a bike into a shop and they do need to touch a bolt, they could be liable. So the idea was that they could install this product in 3 seconds with 0 liability. And that was a thing that they really liked. There was the sale of it was quite easy. The customer could quite easily understand how it works. It just goes into the bolt. So yeah, some of the other premises behind the whole notion behind the Hexlox was I did want to choose an environmentally friendly product. At ITL, we were doing medical products, so it was quite easy to justify any waste or any of the efforts because it was saving lives or allowing people to be more healthy. And in the same way, I think that the Hexlox does this. I saw a stat in the beginning how there's a major percentage, like 70 to 80% of the carbon emissions from cars come from that 10 kilometers from home. So the idea is to have a look at that and how it can be reduced. And personally, I hate riding a bad bike. When you get on a beautiful bike, you can just feel it. You want to ride it. You want to jump on that bike. You want to ride it. So I thought that maybe if people could actually have a nice bike, they would ride it. And if you go to the shop, there's some amazing bikes at the moment, up to 5,000 euros. You can buy a saddle for 180 euros. There's a favorite that's made of leather, a Brooks saddle. It's 120 to 160. But you can't have those. You can't have that on your commuter bike because, for example, in London, the Brooks saddle, Friday afternoons, they'll get stolen and they take them to the flea markets and sell them on Saturday morning, and they can get 50, 60 pounds. The same started happening in Berlin about 2 years after that. And the existing systems, the pitlock system aside, that's a high-end system, but the entry-level systems where they had a bolt that did not have an Allen key, but have a 5-sided Allen key, were being used and they were effective. However, the thieves had progressed and that was no longer effective. So this product is sort of high level of security and there's already low level of security. So it was in different cities in different countries as the thieves learn how to liquidate a bike. What they usually do is steal a bike, and instead of sell a bike, that's a little bit more dangerous because it's got a serial number and it could be more easily identified. So they strip the bike, remove all the parts, and sell the parts individually. Also, there is piranhaing of a bike, where you have a bike that's sitting on the street, you've ridden it to work, someone says, oh, I like that front wheel, or oh, that's a nice saddle, and they'll steal the wheel or the saddle. So yeah, that was the principle on Hexlox. How was that possible, and how did I get to this product? Was the fun part, sort of. I'd just like to for a bit of fun, I'd like to show you the Kickstarter video. The prototype was made in 2013-14, and the Kickstarter was launched in 2015. In 2014, I just had a prototype I made myself, and I took it to Eurobike. The day beforehand, I got the patent. The day after, I went to Eurobike and started to show it to more of the industry leaders. I'd already shown it, obviously, to many people that I know, and shops that I trust, and people who I could work under an NDA. So this is the beginning. This is where it started, and this is funny.
Product can secure any of the bolts on your bike, and this is the key. So to use it, what you do is you pick it up in the key, put it in, and then you give it a quarter turn, and now it's locked in there.
That's it.
That's it. To get it out, you just push it straight in, and it pulls straight out.
So then you can only take it out with using this key.
Yes. So if someone else has a Hexlox, they can't open yours.
It's really cool. Yeah, really.
When developing Hexlox, I drew my last 5 years of experience in developing bike security products. The moment of truth for me was when we realized that we don't need to design another security bolt or screw. The bolts and screws are already there on your bike. We just need to make sure no one can open them. That's Hexlox. To hold the Hexlox inside the bolt head was easy, but how to get it out while not allowing anyone else to?
Oh, it's magnetic, is it? Oh. But if it's magnetic, how can I not just take it out with a magnet?
I'll give you this magnet here.
No.
Can't really grab it. So after trying the tweezers, the magnet, and the pliers, would you believe that when we took it to the Berlin Lockpicker Society, they couldn't either open it?
They couldn't. Okay. Wow. I won't give that. Now this is pretty cool, actually. I really like it because it's like also really clean. It's €12 saddle. I just use it because if I put my bike somewhere, then it's really easy to steal a saddle.
We now need your help to make this project come to life. Final testing is complete, and we are ready for production.
And by supporting us, you're making sure that wheels and saddles all over the world are safe.
And your bike will love you.
So that was the campaign. So just to go back to here, you can see in the bottom left there, the red dot was part of the design process. People were thinking that you would, they didn't realize or understand how the key worked. It was interesting, this where you sort of design features in that are not as necessary in reality, but really answer certain questions that the customer will have. So the red pin was there, so it was easy for people to see, oh, that's how something is stopped from going in. So how it works is, here are actually the first 3 prototypes that I made in my lathe. It took months. As you can see with the Kickstarter, I had just made 3 prototypes, got together some people that they were actually genuine people that I just asked, and for less than 3,000 was able to put together that Kickstarter campaign, and that was the launch. of the Hexlox. I think that's one thing I want to talk about a little bit in this is the genius of Kickstarter, and it probably wouldn't be possible for me without that. There's this, when they released the first product, there's this sort of setting back of the customer and waiting to see how this goes. Is it going to work? They say, I'll see, and I'll talk to you in 1 year. And it's like, well, I've got this new product, so in 1 year, I don't know if you'll be able to speak to me. The Kickstarter, it's a complete different mentality where they're on your team. You start to feed them information and they start to give you feedback. You respond to the feedback and you hear all the questions that they're going to ask. You hear their concerns. You hear additional interesting good ideas. And the whole process is just much more of a positive vibe. And by the end of it, I feel as though you launch a product, you get your feedback, and then you go to generation 2. In actual fact, the Hexlox have not changed since that day, because the product that we launched at, I was already able to get that feedback, incorporate it into the design, and release the product as effectively a revision 2. So that was it was just amazing. We got 120,000 euros. The whole process as to how to run a Kickstarter, I might not speak too much about that. I did want to, but things have changed. I'm 10 years ago, so 7 years ago, sorry. So it's slightly changed, but essentially it's for an industrial designer with an idea, it's the only way to go. You do at these days, you do need to show a lot more back end, and you know, you need to show some more photos or film in a factory, photos and a film of the product very, very close to reality. Kickstarter used to be a little bit rock and roll. You used to be able to launch a product and there was a high failure rate. So I think the skepticism sort of grew. So I think it's good that they make it be more serious and only have products that will be a winner in the end. Essentially the Kickstarter campaign, there's a template for it almost, where on day 1 you have to have all the magazines that you've contacted, all of the media, any kind of social media, all kinds of marketing you can. You need to have them launch your story the day before the Kickstarter launch. So when the general Kickstarter population comes on at launch, you already have a 20% sale minimum, but you should have maybe 30%. These days, apparently, they like you to have 100% of the minimum target. The minimum target being where you say, okay, if we have 60,000 euros, that's enough for us to proceed. When the campaign hits 60,000, the product will proceed. The campaign can still go for 10 days further. Usually a campaign goes for 45 days. There's a 30-day campaign also. It depends on certain criteria. Ours was 45. So then after you have reached that level where if people look at your product and they will be more inclined to back it, there's certain people will back it only if it's already going to be successful. They don't want to mess around by, this is a different type of person. But it was quite important, effectively, to have that core group of people who believed in the product. I was super lucky. I had a lot of friends who bought it. It was super nice. Australian friends from Berlin who backed it, because every backer shows that, okay, if you do a Kickstarter campaign and you don't have any sales on day 1, it's sort of an indication that you can't even convince your friends or the people that you're doing your research for. So I think the Kickstarter is absolutely genius. Some of the other products that did exist at this time, and the reason why this solution was the one I came up with, there were already security bolts that have crazy heads. You'd have to actually remove the entire bolt, and they would have another bolt with the same length and the same diameter that would be able to do the job. But again, the stock levels was also an issue with this direction. A shop don't really want to have 100 SKUs. So the idea was to reduce the amount of SKUs that a shop has to have. Reduce stock levels means less cash sitting there, not doing anything. So they really like that. The key was the key, I suppose. It's so small, and I always had to think about a 60-year-old person or someone with not perfect dexterity. It's theoretically impossible to have something so small that you don't need to be dexterous. So that was the challenge. Given, obviously, it's not a classical key. A classical key also would not work because there's not the space in there. The smallest Hexlox is 4 millimeters wide. So yeah, that's where my time at ITL doing medical products was a help, because there were these lure connections, which is a round tapered connection, and it would join one hose to some capital equipment, for example, a dialysis machine. So that was in the back of my mind, but it didn't really come out until later. So I knew that this was the solution. So I just stuck a piece of rectangular cut-off rod into an Allen key bolt, and the idea was how to get it out. So I was there for months working how to get it out. So once I was changing my chuck key and realized that my chuck was being held, the chuck that was holding my drill bit was being held by a Morse taper. And there it was. That was the answer. Just a tapered. So basically the key is stainless steel, and the end of it is tapered about 2 degrees. And inside of the Hexlox, there's also a hole of the same diameter with also the exact 2-degree taper. And magically, when you push these together, you get this amazing bond. This bond is strong enough so that if you drop the key, the Hexlox will not bounce off. There were concerns at first. Some people would never buy it because they say, hey, it's too small, I'll lose that. So it was important that the Hexlox is actually never not on the key or in a bolt. So what you see there is exactly what I shouldn't be doing, is showing you the Hexlox out of position, but just to show scale. Yeah, and I was able to find a drill bit that had a taper, and then I drilled this tapered hole into the hex rod, and I was able to line up a cutting tool and start making keys. So just try to get the angle so it's the same as the drill bit. It took forever. And then also it has to have a hole in the middle of it where the red pin has clearance. So yeah, that was essentially how I came up with that design. And I had my lathe in the cellar of a bike shop, and I'd run up every week or a few days with a new prototype, and the bike shop owner loved picking locks. So he'd even grind special tools and have all different ways that he'd worked out how to open it, and I'd fail and I'd go back and try again. And eventually I had him. He did go back and spend a few more hours, and of course, like any lock, I had to come to the realization that there's no lock that's impenetrable. Even a Trezor or a safe in a big bank, or there's any lock is openable. So yeah, it was a bit strange going to market knowing that there's that, but relatively compared to the other competition, it was more secure. And when I would go to certain shops, they didn't know how they would open it. There's also the whole get a bigger hammer principle, where if you want a safer lock at the moment for your bike frame, like the D-lock, what you do is make it bigger and bigger and bigger, because you're going up against angle grinder, hacksaw. They freeze it. They have a freeze spray and then they crack it. The idea was to look at the tools that the thieves are using and go in a whole new direction. So there's no thief running around with any tools near capable of opening it. The Kickstarter also revealed a lot of people asking about the rust and will it come out? Will it rust in? Valid question. The best thing about this project was the size. I could use gold almost, and the material quantity is like less than a gram. So I used stainless steel 316P, which sounded super impressive when you said, yeah, it's medical grade stainless steel. It cannot rust. That was a big thing. There is a bolt can rust. So if a Hexlox is inside a bolt, rust is possible, but that rust is coming from the bolt and it's only a surface rust. If you follow our instructions when you install it, you can avoid this. Essentially, the Hexlox is covered in grease or a lubricant, and then if you add some lubricant to your bolt, it can sit there for years and still come out. If it does get stuck in it, that the key, when you really push it in and turn, you can get an amazing bond, like more than 5 kilograms. So in a worst case scenario, you can ramp up that force and remove the Hexlox. So then the other necessity was that when people do choose to secure their components, they want to have one system. And some people want to secure their pedal. Some people want to secure strange types of wheels. So it was very important to have a full range of products at launch. So the products you see here, they were developed in the Kickstarter. The idea being that I wanted to say the Hexlox can secure any part on any bike. I wanted to go to a bike shop and say, if you have these Hexlox in the sizes 4, 5, 6, 7, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, and this hardware, you can secure any part on any bike. So the product on the left is where you have wheels that have a quick release. A quick release is what they use in the Tour de France. It's just a lever. You undo a lever and the wheel can come off. Obviously, that's not Hexlox compatible. So I found an axle manufacturer, just a standard axle from Taiwan, from a very trusted source, and then just created a conical head so that pliers were not able to open it. Here's one I tested. It's extremely destroyed. So there was also, in this product, I had a little groove on the bottom. That groove where the wheel sits into the frame, it's called a dropout, and there's a little slot where the axle goes through. This little tooth would sit in that dropout to add to it not being able to be turned by pliers. Therefore, a thief cannot come with pliers and remove the wheel. The next one is the nut. sometimes a wheel can be secured by a normal nut. Obviously, that's not Hexlox compatible. So that's where I had to develop a nut product. A little bit of drama occurred during that in the final testing of that product before it was taken to market. This was the product. This is the original prototype that I made. So this is the tooth that sits in the dropout, and then it was a shroud for the nut. So the nut would sit inside, and then there's an Allen key bolt there that would be tightened, and then a Hexlox would go in there. It looked great. The nuts have different threads. There's mainly three different threads that cover 95% of the market. But it would be great to remove 3 SKUs and just have one nut security product. There's also, when people were making the purchase, they would not be sure what nut type they had or the thread type they had on their nut. So it was really important to try to negate that and make the ordering process much easier for the customers. Unfortunately, when this product was tested on an aluminium frame with a very long set of pliers, it actually bent and broke the frame. So that was a shock. It was quite dramatic. But it turned out that, okay, let's look at it in a different way. We are going to have these threads, unfortunately, and just try to. That was a disappointment, honestly. That would have been nice, and you have one nut product. So essentially the product that we ended up with is just like a threaded tube with the thread in here is the same as the ones that you need for the different nut types. And then simply just at the top of it, it's just got an Allen key, you can see. So it was a nut that was tightened with an Allen key. It's good, looks nice. It's so you can see it's just tightened with an Allen key. And then it's got there's another destroyed shroud, a shroud that goes over it. So the whole thing spins if someone tries to remove the nut with pliers. Then there was the middle product there above the key. That's the seat post clamp bolt. Sometimes the seat post clamp also has a quick release. So that bolt is a sex bolt, i.e. the nut is quite long and it accommodates different lengths. So if you did have a seat post clamp, the bolt in that clamp might have been, it's usually M6. Fortunately, it was always M6, but it could be 30 to 20 millimeters long. So this sex bolt allowed that to be accommodated, those different lengths. Just to show that, I've paid a lot of money and effort to make these videos, so I'll let them do the talking. My pair who does these videos is amazing. He does a better job than me. So just to reiterate these extra components, I'll just play this video.
There's a problem. Anyone equipped with a normal Allen key or hex wrench can loosen the bolts on your bike and steal your bike parts. That's where Hexlox comes into the picture. This is a Hexlox, and this is a Hexlox key. They work together to secure virtually any parts of your bike against theft. The Hexlox is mechanically coated with your Hexlox key, offering proven, real-life security against bike part theft. Simply insert the Hexlox into your existing bolt using your specially coded Hexlox key. This will effectively block anyone from inserting a hex wrench or Allen key and steal your parts. Hexlox can secure your front wheel, your rear wheel, your seat post, your seat, your stem, your handlebar, your pedals, and virtually anything else that is fastened with a hex bolt. What if you have a seat post clamp with a quick release? That's easy. Just swap it out for our proprietary seat post bolt. With the Hexlox system, you can easily secure your wheels, no matter how they are fastened to your bike. If you have quick release skewers, simply swap them out with the Hexlox security skewers. If you have wheel nuts, just replace them with our hex nuts. If you have through axles, exchange them with the Hexlox Universal Thru Axle. Hexlox can secure any type of wheel, no matter what type of system you're using. As you can see, Hexlox can provide total security against theft for your bike.
So yeah, that better illustrates that issue we had with compatibility and just creating the hardware effectively that would accommodate Hexlox in the different use cases. So there is always change. The biggest change in the market, our biggest selling product was the quick release product. As disc brakes became more popular on bicycles, which is a common theme where motorbike technology is trickling down into the bike industry. So these disc wheels, they require more alignment, better alignment, because the pads are sitting very close. So when you do have a wheel that has disc brakes, generally you would need to use a through axle. The through axle is essentially screwed in to the frame. It's just a big dumb bolt that is screwed directly into the frame. They say that this also increases the stiffness of the bike. It's probably true. I've never done the testing myself. But this fashion is just taking off, and I identified that our new best-selling product will be this bike. Will be this product. As with the ongoing theme, there were different sizes, 32 to be exact. So there was a general through axle might look like this. It's just got a thread, it's got a length, and it's just tightened with an Allen key. But they're always aluminium, and the head is sometimes protruding in a way where you could loosen them with pliers. So on a trip back to Australia one time to hang out with some of my design genius mates, I came up with this idea how to have one axle that would fit every bike. So that's 32 sizes in one. When I say one, I'll sort of clarify that. So the idea is when the bike frame is manufactured, they use different thread types. So when you screw the through axle in, this thread changes depending on the manufacturer's preferences. Between, sometimes it's 1 millimeter, the pitch is sometimes M12 by 1, or M12 by 1.5, or M12 by 1.75. Also, the length is always different. Some of the frames might have a thicker dropout, so the axle needs to be a bit longer. If you have a steel frame bike, the material is much thinner, so the axle is going to be shorter. So the idea was to have, as you can see in the left top corner, you've got a packet, and it's got the main part, and it's got two threaded end parts. These threaded end parts have different threads. This one's an M12 by 1, and then the other end is M12 by 1.5. The idea is say for example, this is the correct thread. The idea is you put the two parts together. So this is a part, this is an actual part. It's got a little clutch here. This clutch allows the axle to go in, but not out. So the idea is you would screw this into the frame, and then you keep on screwing, and the length is adjusted automatically. So the idea is a shop could have that one product and it will fit all rear wheels. But prior to that, the shops were not really able to stock Thru Axles because there were so many, they couldn't be expected to hold 32 different SKUs. So this was a product that was mainly for B2B. At the time of the Kickstarter, I was thinking that the market would have been 90–80% online, given the fact that the product is so easy to install. The Hexlox, choosing the size is quite easy. As time progressed, it's obvious that no matter how easy it is, there was going to be always certain customers who have a relationship with their bike shop, and they will always go to the bike shop. So this was good. I learned to embrace this. I liked the in Berlin, it's called a Kiez, and you've got your Kiez Fahrradladen, or a shop that looks after the people in that area. And they have a relationship. They go there when they've got a flat tire, they go there and ask them questions. And the shop is the person who knows what's good and offers them what they need. And that was not how I thought it would be, but I like it, I embraced it, and it's something that now I think shops are almost, they've surpassed now sales from our direct to customer sales. We do sell online directly to customers. We have 250 stores worldwide where we sell the product to, but I'll get to that detail later. So yeah, the Thru Axle was the most recent product that was launched quite successfully. I think I've talked enough about it. Yeah, so there's the Eurobike. In terms of marketing, this show used to be amazing. It was every bike freak on earth seemed to come. It was in the south of Germany. We've had a stand there every year since the Kickstarter. This allows us to reach shops. There's a lot of media there. Who in the bike industry is there, and it was important to be there. So in terms of our marketing efforts, there's a lot of it is focused towards this show. At this point, most people in the industry know our brand. So the relevance of the bike show now is, in terms of ROI, is not clear, but some of these softer marketing efforts need to be respected and appreciated. But it's in a new town now, in Frankfurt. So there's new shops there. So the last 2 years, there's been different visitors. But yeah, other than that, mainly it was very important for the Hexlox to be reviewed. We found you can talk about it as much as you like, but the best response was coming from sending the product to a customer or a blogger or an opinion leader and having them review it. That was the key. I think in the bike industry, you're not going to last long if the product isn't actually working well. And yeah, it was in the early days, we would fly to London and get on my bike and ride to all of the shops and look at the shops heading to the north and try to get one in the north and one in the south, east and west. Now I think we've got 15, 16, I'm not sure, 20 shops. But it was quite interesting how to sell a product. It's very difficult unless the person had it in their hand. I think there's always a little bit of an amazement when someone uses the product. So I think that was a little bit of a limitation in terms of reaching every shop in the world, because there was not skepticism, but they just didn't know how it worked. And it's something that they needed to see to believe. Magazines, it was great having something that was so small. World's smallest lock, it's a great talking point. Makes for a good heading, makes for a curious story. Surprising enough, in Japan we sell a lot. I think it's mainly because it's interesting and strange, rather than the fact that there's any security issues there, although that's changing a little bit, but still I think they just thought it was cool and techie. Like I said, I went to Barcelona to shops and got some shops there. The sales and marketing guys did the same to New York, and sort of just set like a bedrock. It was always limiting the market for this product. If you don't live in a city that has a lot of theft, it was going to be a hard sell. So we sort of pinpointed the top 20 cities in the world that we would like to focus on. And yeah, our market comes from, not a lot of places, but a lot in a few places, which is fine. It's good. You can direct your marketing city by city to certain people. There's also products like I was mentioning earlier, the Brooks saddles, the leather saddles. You can jump on their back. You can see where they're selling their product, and you know that those shops that are selling their products would be interested in the Hexlox. So as the market and as competition came in, it was important to really identify what's our advantage, why are we better. I always like to say positive things about the competition. I don't want to get into that fight. We're an oligopoly, so there's no need for that. That's not necessary. Before I launched this product, I went to them all and said, hi, I'm coming. But hopefully this market is no longer this niche. It's a larger, broader market, and we can all survive. There's hopefully different benefits that some people prefer from your product. But the Hexlox, this is our USP. This is our key feature that no one else can ever do. So it's the saddle. Underneath the saddle, there's a lot of clamps that hold the seat post to the frame, and there's a lot of security versions of that. But it's very difficult in this case because these bolts are sometimes one, sometimes two, sometimes, as you see from the bottom left, going perpendicular. The one in the middle bottom is like a M8 bolt that's coming from straight under. But as it turns out, that can be 3 different thread types. So this is the one that I like to identify when I say positive things about the competition. I say, yeah, great. However, what's your solution for getting your saddle stolen in via this bolt? And that's pretty much my boring talking point that I sort of just hone in on. Again, it's hard to replace these bolts, and you don't want to replace these bolts because of all the lengths, and effectively you just get one little Hexlox and stick it into this bolt and it's done. You don't have to do any bolt changes. You don't have to get different lengths. You don't have to work out the diameter and the pitch. And that liability thing also is something I like to speak about, because the shops, they're running on pretty fine margins. They don't need problems. So yeah, that's as it's turned out, after the dust has settled, this is the most important product in our range. It's actually the same as a normal Hexlox, but it just does this task. So the next thing is e-bikes. It's quite amazing. At the Eurobike magazine, in the last 10 years, the value of the e-bike market is pretty much equal to that of the normal bicycle market now. It went from just a small little niche of a few freaks, and now It's actually a little bit too much now, I would say, but I want to love e-bikes, and I do, but I think some people are a little bit using one when they probably don't need to. But I think for the older people who want to go touring, the older people who want to go shopping and get around town, it's just absolutely brilliant, especially if you're in a hilly environment or a hilly city. So it's been the number 1 point of research at the moment to work out the direction that this will go. It's important to have a product ready to sell by the time this fashion has settled in. It's been very, so there's a mid-mount motors that you can see on the right. The mid-mount motors is Bosch and Shimano and Bafang, some big players, and there's also Bose. So there's some super big players in that space. Added to that, since the Eurobike this year, there's Pinion, which is some ex-Porsche engineers who originally did a middle-mounted gearbox, which was brilliant. It sort of was nice because it put the weight of the bike in the middle rather than to the back. And they have now also got a motor version. So the mid-mount motor will always be there. The question is with the hub motors to the left. The advantage of the hub motor is you could use theoretically a normal frame and insert the motor and turn an existing bike into an e-bike. These are being used for more fashion bikes. Also, if you have a race bike, sort of a 10 speed, as we used to call them, or a race bike, they will also use this type of motor because there's certain benefits. I won't go into the technicalities of it. So the idea now is that we can basically rename existing products and can secure all of these motors, which is a great thing. Again, the competition is going to have trouble doing that with the systems that they currently use. So this is going to be what I feel is our advantage in the future. A lot of the whole industry realizes that we're moving in this direction, and we want to be there to secure the motors. The theft is not crazy yet for motors. I'm not, but as soon as someone realizes that they can go 20 meters down the road, unscrew 6 bolts and make over 1,500 euros, I think this product will be more relevant. And like I said before, if you are securing a bike, you want a one-stop shop that you need one system that will secure everything. So hopefully that will secure that position for us. There's also batteries. So this is an e-bike. They have a integrated frame with a nice hatch that's all matchy to the frame. Within this hatch that you see on the bottom left, you see inside would be a generic battery. At the Eurobike this year, there was some companies who are complaining that these are getting stolen because it's a generic Bosch battery. It can be used in any e-bike, and this thing, you can move this thing on secondhand markets very easily. So it's going to be very important that we cover all bases on being able to secure these motors in all situations. Some of these batteries are also held within the seat tube. So there's a few possible additional design opportunities there, but as it stands, the existing range can also help in this situation. There's also the accessories an e-bike rider will use. There's like the module where the speed is. There's also any fancy additions to a bike that you might want to add on. The idea is if you are going to have an expensive addition to your bike, there's one associate who does grips. The grips made of wood All he needed to do is specify his product, so it's tightened with a 4mm Allen key, and then we were able to help him by securing it. So that would be the ultimate, where everyone is using a 4mm Allen key at least, so that all of these parts will be, we can secure them. How are we going for time, Oya?
Well, we're just on the 7:32 mark.
So all right, so I'll bring it home. Yeah, so that's essentially that's Hexlox. That's our future. I'll just add one slide for fun. So these, when I'm not I figured to get credibility as a designer, I needed to integrate. So I started racing bikes, I started riding bikes and making bikes out of bamboo. So these are the two bikes that I made from bamboo with the help, well, mainly with a lot of help from Ozone Cyclery. They're a company in Berlin who is Enviro and make bamboo bike kits. So you can buy a kit. The bike on the right is a gravel bike. There's a kit that you use. The bike on the left is a race bike. But I race both of those bikes, and on those bikes you can see on the bottom right corner, you can see the crew, the real crew. And just to be really immersed in the bike culture has been very helpful. And to be racing, you know, if I've got a new product and I race it in these races, no one's going to worry if the product's working or not. And also at the same time, when I race my products, I have to, if I'm not feeling confident, there's something in the back of my mind, so I can always improve the product and design it in a way so that I'm eventually 100% happy with it. Yeah, and yeah, I think that's pretty much how Hexlox began and where we are and our future.
Such a great story, Ian, and it showed the power of perseverance, good market research, and believing in oneself. So I think we still have some time for questions from the audience. So please ask your questions via the chat function, and I have a few here. There's Jamie Tremor that is asking a whole set of questions. Hi, Jamie. So I'll read them. And the first one is it not difficult to start a company like this as a one-man show?
So the first company was the C3N was an Australian company. The Hexlox, I've got a partner, sales and marketing. It was yes. Quick answer, yes. And with all the key size, I had to really be focused on the product. So I had a business development partner who set up the basics as to how to set up a business in Germany. And yeah, then from there, you just get consultants. You get your business consultant, you get your accountant, and then follow their directions and do everything for them. But I have to say, yeah, it wouldn't have been possible without the help of my partner and the team. The team now is amazing. It's just amazing to be able to really focus on future products and on future trends and how to stay number one and go into the office. And now I think the support team are better than me now at working out people's problems and fixing them. So I really do appreciate those guys. They're now working.
Yeah. So Jamie's second question is, did you do the Kickstarter campaign completely on your own? Which I guess no.
No, I had my partner that we saw in the video. He and I did that together. We got a video. We paid also for various, one failed video and one successful edit.
The next question from Jamie is, are all the products produced by the same company?
No, basically anything that breaks in your die is made in Taiwan or Germany, and other parts in China. Everything is assembled here. The Hexlox itself is actually manufactured near Berlin. The guy who manufactures it used to make parts for watches. Without him, it also would have been impossible. The Hexlox is made to 0.01 tolerances, which I didn't think were possible, but he was like, yeah. Originally, I designed it in 0.03 tolerances, but he is amazing. And also to go through the design iterations to make it manufacturable, I wrote out to his workshop hundreds of times. And to control the keys also, here there's all different key sizes. So if you sent that over and had that sent over from Asia, it might get confused. So yeah, the Hexlox is made in Germany, the axles are made in Taiwan, and some sundry items from China. And these days we bring all those products in individually and do the final check and packaging here in Berlin.
Okay, thanks, Ian. And next question from Jamie again. He says, how did you find the producers?
Yeah, actually, the original, that was actually a difficulty, because my contacts from my previous job, ITL, that was more plastics. This was metal. So my partner also helped out there. There's websites where you put a product and just send it out to see if anyone can make it, and you come back and they come back with prices. So I then took the reins on following up some of those options and found these guys eventually. But that was important, yes.
And he asks, did you take on any investors?
No.
No. And then the last question from Jamie is, how long will you continue with the company?
Yeah, I mean, we are mainly research and development based. The sales and marketing, sorry, my screen just changed. The sales and marketing has proven that there's shops that are reordering, and we've got relationship with shops and OEMs and some large bike brands that put Hexlox on a standard. So yeah, there is in the near future the opportunity to sort of sell this range, this suite of products, and the systems that we've made, and we do have some wholesalers just to practice and work out how the system would be integrated in for wholesalers, and how to control the key sizes and how it would function. And yeah, there would be an opportunity to go to a larger company that's got the logistics and a larger base of shops that will come.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Ian. And the next question comes from Ringo Fan, and Ringo asks if you did promote the Kickstarter campaign in any way.
There's online magazines, so just do a story, press release effectively, nice photos. I think we're lucky because this product was a little bit curious, so it was just a case of contacting them. It was quite amazing how they were quite accessible and quite willing to write up the story. And like I said, these days things have changed a little bit. I'm not sure if it's as easy, but at that time it was pretty easy to get 10 or so magazines to publish.
Thanks, Ian. And the last question is from Brian Ling, and Brian asks, he says, it seems like there are a lot of partners in the supply chain. How do you manage your pricing strategy, etc.?
Well, when you manufacture yourself and you sell direct to the shops, it's easy. As you can imagine, when you sell direct to customers, it's super easy. Our margins are great. The suppliers, basically, they do a price for the part and send it, and it looked to add up. And as aluminium went up a little bit 2 years ago, so there was a 20% increase, but we could absorb that. That was yeah, that's not an issue. That wasn't an issue. You say, I want 5,000 parts, pay them half, the parts arrive, and then you can increase their value by a lot when you sell it yourself.
Well, thanks a lot, Ian. I think that was the last question. Oh, Yeah, Ringo just made a comment saying, by the way, we're aiming to launch our campaign by November. So Ringo has a campaign. I don't know what that one is, but maybe.
Okay, Ringo. Well,
Good luck.
hit me up, Ringo, and I'll give you any advice.
Yeah. So thank you, Ian, for this excellent presentation and for sharing your story so generously. It was a pleasure to have you here tonight. And also, I want to express my gratitude to everyone who attended this event, making it even more unforgettable. And finally, just to heads up from the next Stories Behind Products, it will take place in a few weeks on July 24th. Joshua Flowers, another outstanding alum of UNSW Industrial Design, will be our next presenter with the story of SpeakC, which is a clever Bluetooth wearable microphone unit using real-time speech recognition and subtitles in group conversations to visualize the conversation and help people with hearing loss. So stay tuned for the invitation to this event, and we look forward to seeing you again for the following Stories Behind Products. Until then, stay safe and well. Bye, everyone, and thanks again, Ian.
Ciao. Ciao, everyone.